The Last Stand at Meridian Outpost Captain Sarah Chun pressed her palm against the reinforced viewing port and watched the alien ships move through space like predators circling wounded prey. The Kethver vessels were unlike anything inhuman. Records, their hulls seeming to bend light around them in ways that hurt to look at directly. 3 weeks had passed since they first appeared in the Meridian system, and 3 weeks since the last transmission from Earth Command had reached the research outpost. The morning alarm echoed through the corridors of Meridian Station, though morning and night had lost their meaning in the endless siege. Sarah had been awake for most of the past 72 hours, catching fragments of sleep when exhaustion finally overwhelmed her duty to stay alert. Her reflection in the metallic wall showed a woman pushed beyond her limits, dark circles under brown eyes that had seen too much death, black hair pulled back in a regulation bun that had come loose days ago. Dr. Marcus Webb approached from the research section, his normally pristine lab coat stained with grease and dried blood from helping with repairs. Before the attack, he had been studying ancient alien artifacts found in the asteroid belt, pieces of technology from a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. Now those same artifacts might be humanity's only hope for survival. "Captain, I think we have something," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from breathing recycled air thick with smoke and fear. "The artifact in Lab 7 is responding to the Kethver presence. The energy patterns are unlike anything we have seen before." Sarah turned from the window, forcing herself to focus on Marcus, despite the exhaustion that made every thought feel like swimming through mud. The research station had been built to house 800 civilians and scientists, with a security force of 60 personnel to protect against pirates and equipment failures. No one had planned for a full-scale alien invasion. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez came, running down the corridor, her security uniform torn and patched with emergency sealant where shrapnel had cut through the fabric. She had been a mining foreman on Europa before joining station security, and her experience with dangerous equipment had kept them alive when the aliens first attacked. Her weathered hands never stopped moving, always checking weapons, sealing breaches, or helping move the wounded. "Captain, we lost another section of the outer ring," Elena reported, breathing hard from running between defensive positions. "The Kethver are using some kind of energy weapon that cuts through our hull plating like it is paper. We have maybe 6 hours before they breach the main habitat areas." The station shuddered as another alien weapon struck their failing shields. The lights flickered and the artificial gravity wavered for several seconds before the backup system stabilized. Sarah had felt that same sick weightlessness dozens of times over the past weeks, each time wondering if this would be the moment their defenses finally collapsed completely. Tommy Park looked up from his communications console, his young face pale but determined. He had graduated from the academy only 8 months ago, expecting to spend his service monitoring routine supply convoys and sending status reports to Earth. Instead, he had become their lifeline to hope, constantly scanning for any sign that help was coming from the home system. "Captain, I'm still getting nothing from Earth Command," Tommy said, his voice steady despite the fear Sarah could see in his eyes. "The last message was 3 weeks ago, confirming they received our distress signal. Since then, complete silence." The silence from Earth was almost worse than the alien attacks. Every human colony, every station, every ship in space depended on Earth's protection. The home system had the largest fleet, the most advanced weapons, and the strategic reserves needed to respond to threats across human space. For that fleet to remain silent while one of their outposts faced extinction was unthinkable. Chief Engineer Paul Anderson emerged from the maintenance shaft that connected the main engineering section to the command center. His coveralls were black with oil and coolant, and his gray beard was singed from working too close to overloaded power conduits. Paul had served on merchant ships for 30 years, before retiring to the quiet life of a research station engineer. Now he was the only thing standing between 800 people and the cold vacuum of space. "Sarah, we have got problems with the main reactor," Paul said, wiping his hands on a rag that had long since stopped being clean. "The alien weapons are not just cutting through the hull. They are doing something to our power systems, creating feedback loops that are burning out components faster than I can replace them." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, trying to process all the bad news while searching for any solution that might keep them alive a few hours longer. The Kethfer had appeared without warning, their ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation around Meridian Station. They had not responded to any attempts at communication, had not demanded surrender, had not explained their presence. They had simply begun attacking with weapons that human science could barely understand. "How long can you keep us running?" Sarah asked, though she was not sure she wanted to hear the answer. "Maybe 12 hours if we shut down everything except life support and basic shields," Paul replied. "But Captain, if we lose main power, those things out there will not need weapons to kill us. The cold will do it for them." Dr. Webb moved closer to the group, clutching a datapad that contained weeks of desperate research. His hands shook slightly as he spoke, not from fear, but from excitement mixed with exhaustion. The artifact he had been studying was unlike anything in human records, clearly built by a species with technology far beyond what humans had achieved. "Captain, I need to show you what we found in the artifact chamber," Marcus said. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this thing is, it is definitely reacting to the Kethfer presence. I think it might be some kind of weapon or defense system." Asterisk, the station shook again, and this time the lights went out completely. For several seconds before the emergency systems kicked in. Red warning lights bathed the corridor in an ominous glow, while alarms announced hull breaches, power failures, and system malfunctions in a dozen different sections. Sarah made a decision that she hoped would not get them all killed. "Elena, pull back all security teams to the inner sections. Focus on protecting the civilian areas and the research labs. Paul, give Dr. Webb whatever power he needs for his experiments. Tommy, keep monitoring for any sign of Earth fleet." What about the outer defenses?" Elena asked. "We hold what we can, but our priority is buying time," Sarah replied. "If Dr. Webb is right about that artifact, it might be our only chance." The group dispersed to their duties, each person carrying the weight of 800 lives on their shoulders. Sarah remained at the viewing port, watching the Kethfer ships move closer with each passing hour. Their vessels seemed to shimmer and shift, making it difficult to get accurate counts or targeting solutions. The aliens fought with precision and patience, methodically destroying human defenses while taking minimal losses. Asterisk, in the research section, Dr. Webb worked frantically to understand technology that had been ancient when humanity was still learning to make fire. The artifact was a crystalline structure the size of a person, covered in symbols that seemed to move when viewed directly. For weeks it had been dormant, just another puzzle for scientists to study. Now it pulsed with energy that made nearby equipment malfunction and created strange distortions in local spacetime. Elena moved through the station's corridors like a guardian angel, checking on defensive positions and helping evacuate wounded civilians from damaged sections. Many of the station's residents were scientists and researchers, people who had never expected to face combat, but they had adapted with the resilience that defined humanity, learning to use mining equipment as weapons and turning laboratory supplies into medical treatment for the wounded. Tommy Park sat at his communication station, scanning every frequency and checking every sensor array for any sign that Earth remembered its children on the frontier. The silence from home was deafening, but he never stopped looking. Hope was all they had left, and someone needed to keep that hope alive. Chief Engineer Anderson crawled through maintenance tunnels and climbed through service shafts, keeping their damaged systems running through sheer determination and decades of experience. Every repair was temporary. Every fix was a desperate measure to buy a few more hours. But humans had always been good at making temporary solutions work long enough to find permanent ones. The Kethver ships moved into their final attack formation. As the station's shields flickered and died, in 12 hours, maybe less, the siege of Meridian Station would be over. But in the research labs, ancient technology was awakening, and 800 human beings were about to discover that their species had more friends in the galaxy than they had ever imagined. When Earth remembers its children, the ancient artifact in Lab 7 began to sing. Dr. Marcus Webb had never heard anything like the sound that filled the research chamber, a harmonic resonance that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A crystalline structure, pulsed with light, that shifted through colors human eyes had no names for, and the symbols on its surface moved like living things across the alien metal. "Captain Chun to the research lab immediately," Marcus called. Over the communication system, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Around him, equipment that had been dead for weeks suddenly came online. Displays showing readings that made no scientific sense. Sarah arrived at the lab just as the station's main lights flickered back to full power. The artificial gravity stabilized. The air recycling systems hummed with renewed efficiency. And for the first time in 3 weeks, Meridian Station felt like a place where humans could actually live instead of merely survive. "What is happening, Marcus?" Sarah asked, staring at the artifact that now dominated the center of the lab like a small star made of crystal and light. "I think it is trying to communicate," Marcus replied, checking readings on instruments that had been giving impossible data for the past hour. "Captain, this thing is not just responding to the Kethver presence. It is responding to us. To humans. The energy patterns match our neural activity, our genetic markers, even our ship designs." The station shook one more time, but this tremor felt different. Instead of the jarring impact of alien weapons, this was a deep thrumming that seemed to come from space itself. Tommy Park's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with an excitement that made his words almost incomprehensible. "Captain, you need to get to the command center right now. Something big is happening out there, really big." Sarah and Marcus ran through corridors that were suddenly bright with normal lighting instead of the red glow of emergency systems. Throughout the station, people emerged from shelters and hiding places, looking around in wonder as systems that had been failing for weeks suddenly operated better than they ever had before. In the command center, Tommy Park sat at his console, with tears streaming down his face. The main display showed space around Meridian Station, but the view had changed dramatically in the past few minutes. Where before there had been only the Kethver fleet and empty stars, now space itself seemed to be opening up. "Captain, I am reading massive hyperspace distortions all around the system," Tommy said, his voice shaking with emotion. "Multiple contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Big ones, really big ones." The first ship to emerge from hyperspace was larger than anything in the human fleet archives. Its hull gleamed with a silver-white finish that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight in impossible ways. As Sarah watched, more ships appeared around it, each one different in design, but sharing the same ethereal beauty that spoke of technology far beyond human achievement. "Those are not Earth ships," Elena said, joining the group at the main display. "Captain, what are we looking at?" Before Sarah could answer, the communication system activated with a signal unlike anything they had received before. The voice that spoke was human, but it carried harmonics and undertones that suggested the speaker was using technology that enhanced human communication in ways Sarah could not understand. "Meridian Station, this is Admiral Rebecca Storm of the Earth Deep Space Defense Fleet. The voice said, each word carrying weight and authority that made everyone in the command center stand straighter. "We apologize for the delay in our response. We have been preparing." Sarah grabbed the communication microphone with hands that shook from relief and disbelief. "Admiral Storm, this is Captain Sarah Chun, commanding Meridian Station. We have 800 civilians under siege by an unknown alien force. Our defenses are failing, and we need immediate assistance." "Understood, Captain Chun," Admiral Storm replied. "We have been monitoring your situation. The Kethver have been testing human resolve for several months, probing our defenses and studying our responses. They made the mistake of assuming that what they saw was all humanity had to offer." On the main display, more ships continued to emerge from hyperspace. Sarah counted 30, then 50, and stopped counting as the numbers became overwhelming. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering that combined human ingenuity with technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Admiral, where did these ships come from?" Sarah asked. "Earth Command has never mentioned a deep space fleet of this size or capability." "Because, Captain, these ships represent 20 years of preparation for exactly this scenario," Admiral Storm replied. "When humanity first ventured into deep space, we knew we would eventually encounter species that viewed us as threats or opportunities. The artifacts your Dr. Webb has been studying were left by our predecessors, a species that faced similar challenges millions of years ago." Dr. Webb looked up from his instruments, his face pale with understanding. "Captain, the artifact is not just ancient technology. It is a message, a gift left by a species that wanted to help younger races survive contact with predators like the Kethver. The alien fleet around Meridian Station began to move, but instead of attacking, the Kethver ships seemed to be pulling back, their formations becoming defensive rather than aggressive. On long-range sensors, Sarah could see why. The Earth fleet was not just larger than the alien force. It was technologically superior in ways that made the Kethver weapons look primitive. "All Kethver vessels, this is Admiral Storm," the communication system announced, broadcasting on frequencies that reached every ship in the system. "You are in violation of the Meridian Accords, attacking a civilian research station without provocation. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system or face the consequences." The Kethver response came not in words, but in action. Their entire fleet opened fire simultaneously, directing every weapon they possessed at the lead Earth vessel. The energy beams and projectiles that had been devastating Meridian Station's defenses struck the human ship and simply disappeared, absorbed by shielding technology that turned their attacks into harmless light shows. "Kethver fleet, you have made your choice," Admiral Storm announced. "Captain Zhou Wei, you are cleared to demonstrate human diplomacy." One of the smaller Earth ships broke formation and accelerated toward the alien fleet with impossible speed. Instead of weapons, it deployed what looked like metallic clouds that spread throughout the Kethver formation. Within seconds, every alien ship found itself surrounded by swarms of microscopic machines that began systematically disabling their weapons, engines, and life support systems. Asterisk. "This is Captain Zhou Wei of the EDS Harmony," a new voice announced over the communication system. "Kethver vessels, your ships are now under our control. We have disabled your weapons, but left your life support intact. We do not wish to harm you, but we will not allow you to harm others." The demonstration of power was overwhelming, but what happened next showed the true strength of humanity. Instead of destroying the helpless alien fleet, Admiral Storm opened direct communication with the Kethver commanders. "Kethver leadership, I am Admiral Rebecca Storm of the Earth Defense Fleet," she announced. "We know you attacked our station to test human resolve and capability. You have seen our response. We could destroy your fleet without effort, but that is not the human way. We prefer to talk." The response from the Kethver came after several minutes of silence. When their leader finally spoke, the translation systems rendered a voice filled with what sounded like grudging respect. "Human Admiral, we have observed your species for several rotations of your home star," the alien voice said. "We believed you were weak, isolated, unprepared for the realities of galactic politics. We were wrong." "Yes, you were wrong, Admiral," Storm replied. "But being wrong is not a crime. Attacking civilians is. However, we are prepared to discuss terms for your withdrawal and future relations between our species." Over the next hour, Sarah watched something remarkable unfold. The Earth fleet, which could have easily annihilated the Kethvar, instead engaged in careful diplomacy. Admiral Storm negotiated not just the immediate withdrawal of the alien forces, but the establishment of formal diplomatic relations and agreements for peaceful contact. Dr. Webb worked frantically to understand the implications of what the artifact had revealed. The ancient technology was not a weapon, but a teacher, showing humanity how to integrate alien science with human ingenuity. The ships of the Earth Defense Fleet were the result of years of careful study and development, combining the best of human engineering with knowledge left by species that had faced similar challenges. "Captain Chun," Admiral Storm's voice came over the communication system as the crisis finally ended. "We will be establishing a permanent presence in this system to ensure your continued safety. But more importantly, we want to offer the people of Meridian Station the opportunity to join the Deep Space Defense Fleet." Sarah looked around the command center at the faces of her people. Tommy Park, who had never stopped believing help would come. Elena Rodriguez, who had kept them alive through impossible odds. Paul Anderson, who had held their world together with determination and skill. Dr. Webb, whose curiosity had unlocked secrets that changed humanity's place in the galaxy. "Admiral, we would be honored to serve," Sarah replied. As the Earth fleet took up protective positions around Meridian Station, Sarah realized that humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most human way possible. They had survived impossible odds, turned enemies into potential allies, and proven that the species from the small blue planet would never give up on each other. The Kethver fleet departed the system, but not as conquerors. They left as the first alien species to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their refusal to abandon hope and their determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the days that followed, word of the Meridian Station incident spread throughout the galaxy. Other species learned that the humans from Earth were not the simple, primitive beings they had appeared to be. They were a species that prepared for the worst while hoping for the best, that could fight like warriors when necessary, but preferred to talk like diplomats whenever possible. The artifact in Lab 7 continued to sing its ancient song, but now Dr. Webb understood its meaning. It was not just a message from the past, but a promise for the future. Humanity had joined a community of species that chose cooperation over conquest, that valued life over power, and that understood that the greatest victories were won not through force, but through the courage to extend a hand in friendship, even to former enemies. Captain Sarah Chun stood at the viewing port one more time, but now instead of watching alien predators circle her home, she saw the protective formation of Earth's finest ships. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were destinations, possibilities, places where humanity would meet new friends and face new challenges with the same determination that had kept 800 people alive during the darkest 3 weeks in Meridian Station's history. Help had come. Earth had remembered its children, and the galaxy would never be the same.